angels waging war in the unseen realm. Global events fulfilling biblical prophecy. Eternal life. What lies beyond mortality? From analyzing the paranormal from a biblical worldview to the discussion of cutting-edge science and technology, conspiracy, discovery, special investigative reports. Unafraid to explore the challenging issues facing humanity. Welcome to another edition of Skywatch TV.
Chuck Missler puts it best. The Bible is an integrated message system from outside our time domain. Welcome to Skywatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert. Our guest is going to talk about some fascinating research being conducted by rabbis in Israel and what messages might hold in store for us. In studio with me are, my best friend, my wife, Sharon K. Gilbert,
Hi.
and the producer and director of a fascinating documentary film called Torah Codes End to Darkness, the man behind Pinlight Films, Richard Shaw. Richard, welcome.
Hey, thank you, Derek. Pleasure to be here with you guys.
This is fascinating stuff, and it is a somewhat controversial topic because of what it implies. So we'll get into all of this as to how much information we can take from these codes. But I think for people not familiar with the concept of Bible codes or Torah codes, we need to explain what are they?
Yeah, it's not some kind of hocus pocus or anything like that.
No, not at all. I mean, the more that I study this and the older I get, the more I realize how important numbers are in Scripture, just in general. I mean, there's so many dimensions given and years given, number of days and nights, all
there
of
are
these
numbers
things.
that repeat over and over again, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Right.
It's like, what's up with all of that? And then you find out, you get into the kind of the simple codes, which we call gematria, which is every Hebrew character is assigned a number. And this has been going on for centuries. This is nothing new. And the rabbis would add up names and find out what the number might be. But now, what we're discovering is that there's something called the Torah codes, which was perceived that it was in existence centuries ago, but we didn't have the technologies back then to really understand how to find it or what it was. And that wasn't discovered until the 1900s, when a rabbi by the name of Michael Dov Weissmandel, who was an incredibly brilliant mathematician, discovered ELS, or equidistant letter sequencing. Now, I know this gets really thick and heavy, but I'm going to go through the basics here so you realize this isn't mumbo jumbo. This isn't like some kind of strange cult. These are numbers that are encoded in the first 5 books of the Old Testament. So what he discovered was that if you count, if you skip every so many letters, Hebrew characters, you get other words. And you think, well, you could do that with any book. Well, and that's true. But what happens in the Torah, unlike any other book that we've used, is you get repeatable results that are highly statistical as far as probability factor is way up there. For example, right after 9/11 occurred, Professor Eliyahu Rips, who is pretty much considered the discoverer of the Torah codes in the modern era, he would cringe if he heard me say that. But this is a name I want you to remember. Rips is a brilliant and humble professor of mathematics in the area of group theory, where he's doing things that are way beyond like the average person. This is a world-class mathematician. At the time that they discovered this, he was exposed to the concept of what Weissmandel came up with in 1976. And that number is 5736 in the Hebrew calendar. That number appears in tables all the time. It was the year that Rips discovered this thing that was expressed to him by another rabbi by the name of Yaniv. Rabbi Yaniv told him about this, that Weissmandel had discovered this. It wasn't until the 70s that we had a computer to even use. So you see how this is like,
yes.
time-stamped. So the first computer that they ever did the Torah codes on was an Apple II, because that's all there was. And you can remember in those days, there wasn't enough memory to put the whole Torah in the computer, so they would do a few chapters at a time. And then in those days, there was no Hebrew font.
Right.
So then you have to think, well, how in the heck? And I asked him this at his apartment last time I saw him in Israel. How did you guys do this then, so long ago? And he said, well, we assigned every letter a number. Now, this is different than gematria. This is just so they could input it into the computer. So essentially what they got is they did testing to look for names and events and places and dates. They did it all numerically. So they would end up with a string of numbers or a table of numbers when they got done. Then they would have to convert those into Hebrew characters. And I said, oh, man, that's so hard. And he goes, oh, really? It's quite simple. He said, I'm going, well, maybe for you it is. I wouldn't know what I was looking at, But that's how they did it. But then later in the late 80s, Dr. Rotenberg, who's another really brilliant professor, also lives in Jerusalem, a graduate from Moscow University, decided to make a graphic depiction of this. And what he came up with in the late 80s, early 90s is what we know now today as a Torah code table, which looks kind of like a crossword puzzle with Hebrew characters running in different directions. That was his brainchild, and Professor Rips thought it was a lovely and beautiful thing. So that's how we got to that point. Rather than neglecting this, I have to mention that in those early days, there were two other men working with Professor Rips. One was named Doran Woodstum, who was a brilliant computer programmer, and there was another man, Yoav Rosenberg. So it was the three of them together worked to develop this and came up with this. Well, what they discovered, I said, what did you find? What was the first code that you put in when I was asking Rips this? Where you thought you weren't going crazy and that this was actually meaningful information. And he showed it to me. He said it was the Vilna Gaon.
Oh my goodness.
The genius of Vilna.
Yeah,
the
genius of Vilna.
Yeah.
So it comes up in the codes, the genius of Vilna, and then his birth and death was in there, and where he lived, and all these things, it all appeared on one line. So he realized that the chances of that happening are thousands
astronomical.
to one. Yeah. So then he realized they were onto something that also meant, which gives you chills a bit, that the Torah was relating information thousands of years after it was written. Now, how is that possible?
Yeah.
So then there was this book that came out in the late 90s by a man named Michael Drosnin. Michael Drosnin wrote a book called The Bible Code. And on the cover of that book is a table. We call them tables that look like crossword puzzles. And it said, Yitzhak Rabin, assassin will assassinate. Now, he found that table a year before Rabin was indeed assassinated. Now, he didn't know what to do with it. He went and talked to the security guys in Israel and said, look, I have a table from a manuscript that's 3,000 years old. It says that Rabin's going to be assassinated. Well, at one point, he was afraid, from what interviews I've heard of him say, that he was afraid that they were going to think he was going to...
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, he was the assassin. But come to find out, Rabin was indeed assassinated, and I don't remember the name of the assassin. It was like a short name, like a little four-letter word like Anam or Amin or something like that. Later, they looked in that same table, and the name of the assassin was also encoded.
Oh my goodness.
But you wouldn't have known that.
No.
So this is the thing. It's like, well, does that mean that we can use the Torah codes as a predictive tool? And all of the rabbis say it is resounding no, because we don't know what this information is, and we don't know enough about the future to know what to ask. So we could be getting erroneous information. However, sometimes it indeed works, and sometimes we're getting information that might just be considered the zeitgeist of what's going on, that everybody's talking about, and it ends up in the Torah codes. I mean, we've seen that happen as well. So that's like a little bit, just barely scratching the surface of it. The film that I did gets into more of how all this works, and then the stuff we're going to talk about later today gets into the more current Torah code.
It is fascinating because it substantiates the belief of Jews and Christians, of course, that this is indeed a supernatural document that's been preserved for us.
Sure.
And you make a good point in addressing the concern that some have, the criticism that's been made by some, that this is essentially trying to foretell the future, which
Right.
is strictly forbidden in the Bible.
Right, in the book of
in fact,
Deuteronomy.
yeah, in
which
the
is-
Torah, right.
Yeah, it basically says it's an abomination.
Right.
So, but it didn't talk about codes particularly.
And I guess what we need to point out is that the rabbis who are doing this research, as you say, are not looking at this as a way to try to predict the future. This is not,
No.
1-900 call, Miss Cleo or whatever to
No.
try to get a reading. This is trying to find what messages God may have, maybe choosing to reveal. Is that the right way to put it?
I think so. And the other thing is, like, what are we supposed to take back from this if we can't use it as a predictive tool? I think it just shows that everything about us is encoded. But yet once I had a conversation with Rabbi Glaserson privately in my studio, and I said, have you found pretty much everybody in the Torah? And he said, there's some people we can't find. And then I said, really? That was really intriguing to me. Like, why would they not be? And then I said, could the Torah codes be the book of life?
That's a wonderful question.
Ooh. Well, we'll continue discussing the Torah codes, how Richard Shaw got involved in this research in the first place, because this isn't exactly something you'd assume a filmmaker would tackle as a first project or top priority. But if we're dealing with a truly supernatural document, why couldn't God have encoded the book of life in the Torah? More when Skywatch TV continues after this. Save nearly half off the cover price when you subscribe now to the brand new Skywatch TV magazine. For a limited time from April 24th through June 24th, 60 days only, a 5-year subscription to Skywatch TV magazine is just $99. That's more than $75 off the cover price, which is like getting 2 years for free. Exclusive content, articles on prophecy, discovery, and the supernatural from Tom Horn, Chris Putnam, Josh Peck, science updates from Sharon K. Gilbert, geopolitics from yours truly, and guest writers like Pulitzer Prize-nominated journalist Troy Anderson, renowned Bible scholar Dr. Michael Heiser, Pentagon advisor Lieutenant Colonel Bob McGinnis, and more. But there is more. As an early subscriber, you'll be the first to get this new book from Defender Publishing. I predict what 12 global experts believe you'll see by 2025. This is a $20 value and includes best-selling authors like Joel Richardson, Mark Biltz, Carl Gallups, Tom Horn, Paul McGuire, and more. Find out what they think about the coming war between ISIS and the Vatican, the future of the Temple Mount and the Ark of the Covenant, a worldwide manifestation of angels, and the coming age of human hybrids. And we'll also add this DVD, The Best of Skywatch TV 2015, a $25 value, including our most compelling interviews from last year, including Chuck Missler, Steve Quayle, the discussion of the Georgia Guidestones with Chris Pinto, and more. All of this together worth more than $200, yours now for just $99, but only through June 24th. Subscribe now, Skywatch TV Magazine. Just call the number on your screen or log on to skywatchtvstore.com. Is the Book of Life encoded in sequential characters in the first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah codes? We're talking with filmmaker Richard Shaw, Pinlight Productions, about Torah codes, Into Darkness, your film. What was it that led you to tackle this as a subject for a movie?
Well, I'd seen several documentaries that had been previously done, and most of them pretty much concentrated on the books of Michael Drosnin that he had done. Now, having read all of those books, and I own them all, and I find them really entertaining and very informative, and he's an excellent writer, by the way, and has written other heavy pieces of work. But I felt like if we're going to do something that's really authentic on the Torah codes, why aren't we going to Jerusalem and interviewing the actual guys doing it and find out what they think is important, why are they doing it? And it really took years to accomplish that. I mean, the first thing was, and I've told this story before, but basically in a thumbnail sketch of how this happened, is my good friend Lee Candelon walked into my studio. This was back in 2006. And we got to talking about, future projects. And I said, I'd like to do more documentaries. So this is before I started on Watchers with L.A. Marzulli. I mean, this was like a long time ago. I was working on a movie at the time called Beat the Drum, which won a lot of awards, and I was like one of the co-producers on that project. But then I was also working on a rap project called the Words Project, which is up on YouTube right now if anyone wants to see it. And I wouldn't allow Christian bands to be involved in it. because I wanted to get street kids reading these words. And it was something that, and also famous rappers, and a lot of the Christian community going to have no idea who I'm talking about, like the Bone Thugs and Harmony, Blacksmith, and the Last Poets, which were all Muslims, and they all wanted to rap the words of Christ.
That's fascinating.
Oh
Yeah.
my.
So we did that project. It took 2 years. So I was working on that when I just mentioned to Lee that, it'd be really great to do a documentary about the Bible codes because I haven't seen one done the way I would want to do it yet. That was it. It was a quick discussion. Lee runs off because he's working with Ricky Lee Jones, recording artist. He did a concert with her in Japan. Lee's brother, Paul Catalan, is a very accomplished composer for motion pictures and was working on a film shortly thereafter with Oliver Stone. So he went to go visit his brother Paul. So he had to fly from LA to New York, and his flight was canceled. So they rebooked it, and he goes back on. I mean, has nothing to do with the Torah codes yet. He gets on this plane, random seat assignment, puts him next to this guy who looks like a rabbi. He sits down beside him, and Lee's a really brilliant guy. He speaks like 3 or 4 different languages. His father was a famous writer, Willard Catalan, who was famous back in the 60s and 70s. And Willard was also intrigued with the Bible code, so that's how Lee was exposed to it, as well as me, because he knew about the books I had and had read. So somehow that came up in their discussion, since this guy looked like a rabbi. And come to find out, this man that Lee was randomly put next to was Professor Robert Haralick from City University in New York, the guy that was writing the algorithm to search the Torah.
Oh.
And knew all of the professors and rabbis, were his personal friends. And this was a brilliant guy that was involved in pattern recognition, probability, computer imaging, like a lot of the stuff that we take for granted on our computers now for JPEGs and all of that stuff was partially invented by Robert working with a team of other guys. He's well known in that industry. So he's a brilliant man, and he said the Torah code is the hardest, most difficult thing he's ever done. So Lee, when they landed in LaGuardia, tossed his cell phone to Robert, and we were connected. So now I didn't know what to do with myself. I'm now talking to the guy that writes the software to search the Torah and who knows Professor Rips, Rabbi Glazerson, Art Levitt, Harold Gans, everybody who's a world expert.
Be careful
in the
what
process.
you pray for.
Yeah.
So the next thing that happened, I was talking with some other broadcasters saying, are you guys interested in doing a film about this? I'm trying to get this thing funded. He goes, well, maybe. Tell me what what they're doing. So I wrote Robert and I said, do you have anybody do you have anything new that you can tell me so I can get this guy interested? And he writes back a one-liner email to me. Rabbi Glazerson and Professor Rips will be in Los Angeles tomorrow. Here's his cell phone number.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, this is just like one thing after another. So I went and visited with him, and here I am, exchanging stuff off my computer with Professor Rips and spent the whole afternoon with him. It was magical. I couldn't believe this was even happening. So now I'm going, well, now I have to somehow find the funds to do it. So it took years to get all this together, and also it took years to build trust with the professors and rabbis.
That's a question I've been meaning to ask is, how did these learned rabbis respond to this Christian guy coming out of nowhere to say, I want to do a movie about what you guys are researching?
Good question.
I told a friend, Rabbi Perry, who is a friend of Glazerson, Glazerson introduced me to Rabbi Perry. And once I told him, I said, the thing I love about you guys so much is that as soon as we get together, bam, we're talking about God instantly. And he goes, what else is there? And that's the way all of these guys are. And Glazerson has become such a close friend. He means so much to me. Our differences, while they're there, I don't wear my Christianity on my sleeve, but we still share our own perspective views with each other, which I think is healthy.
Yeah.
And I can't say anything but having love and admiration for Rabbi Glazerson, because he's definitely gifted. I've told him, I said, what you're doing is the work of a very gifted person. And Eliyahu Rips has his own method of searching codes. Art Levitt, also very gifted, has his own, and each of them have a style of doing it. Now, Rips likes to find complete sentences because what he's trying to do, he doesn't want anyone to think this is random. He wants people to believe, like, what are the chances of finding, something about Osama bin Laden in a complete unbroken sentence with the same skip all the way through? And he's found that, once I was on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie, which is a major late night kind of paranormal talk show. George had me on about the Torah codes, and this question came up about, is the Torah codes the book of life? And so George goes, I gotta know if I'm in there. So I wrote my friends in Israel, I said, this is important. We need to do a table for George. And Professor Rips finds in an unbroken sentence, George Norrie loves the paranormal, but clear cut. Now, that was in the Torah codes, all with the same skip. I mean, that's basically George's personality to a T. I mean, he's very scientific and factual about what he presents, like all the stuff about UFOs or whatever it is that we're talking about. It's not like woo-woo stuff. It's
he's got a long background in broadcast news and broadcast journalism, so that's his training.
And he's very good at what he does. So, I mean, the tables that we found were really interesting. And one that Professor Haralick found on George Norrie was this tiny little table. It says George Norrie, broadcaster, radio, had all of the words, but then when you actually discover where it was in the scripture, it was talking about going over and in taking over the cities of the Nephilim.
Oh, my goodness.
That was the passage of scripture that George's whole table was
from the book of Joshua then.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
no, that was like, it was like in Numbers, I think.
Oh, okay, right. Numbers 13:33.
Yeah,
right.
that one.
Well, we're running short of time, and I know we've only scratched the surface here, but I know that there's a fascinating, along these same lines, a discovery that sent chills down your spine.
There's one where they found my company name and my name side by side. It says Torah codes will be distributed, Pinlight, which is the name of my company, and then it says Richard Shaw in the table.
Yeah.
I mean, your knees get a little wobbly when you see stuff like that,
yeah.
But now what we're finding is the year 2016, which I know Tom Horn just wrote a book on, Zenith 2016. There is so much information coming up on Messiah and the year 2016 that we have to ask why that is.
Yeah. Well, again, with just a couple of minutes, maybe we can give a little tease, and then for the next program, we can go into more depth.
I was going to say, that's a huge topic.
Because
so
that's a topic that'll take a whole program.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that are really compelling about this? And then we'll expand on this on the next program.
Well, according to the Jewish mindset, and of course, this is in the Old Testament. I mean, they believe that the Messiah will be heralded by the appearance of Elijah. These tables come up, Elijah, Messiah, will appear 2016. I mean, I have many tables. There's many. Israel, Messiah, 2016.
Does it actually say 2016 or
Yeah,
5776?
it's in the Hebrew calendar. So instead of actually 2016, which is the Gregorian calendar, it's in the Hebrew calendar. So that number is 5776. On top of that, there's gematria going on, which is, like I was saying earlier, the science of numbers. Every Hebrew character has a number. They're finding scriptures. I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It adds up 776. The year of the Messiah, 776. I mean, all of these things, these sentences, these scriptures add up to that. And if you go to my website, you can actually see these, because I have them up there and you can just watch them.
And the website is?
endtodarkness.com.
Endtodarkness.com. This is a fascinating topic. We've only just scratched the surface, and we'll have Richard back for another program. But if you'd like to own a copy of the Torah Codes End to Darkness, this is the deluxe package, which includes a DVD and the Blu-ray version. So if you've got the capability to play one or both, and you've got a friend who might be interested, you can get two for the price of one. $17.95 is the price, plus shipping and handling. And we will add as a bonus, free of charge, the audiobook version of the Ahriman Gate, a fictionalized account of what might happen or what it might be like should the Nephilim actually return. Again, Torah Codes Into Darkness and the Ahriman Gate, yours for $17.95 plus shipping and handling from skywatchtvstore.com. This is a fascinating conversation. We just got started. So Richard, get a drink of water and get set, because we'll have you back next week and do this again.
Great fun. Thank you, Derek.
And we thank you for watching as we keep watch. For Sharon Gilbert, I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is Skywatch TV.
Coming exclusively from Skywatch TV for a very limited time starting May 31st, 2016. When you purchase the new book and final report from Tom Horn and Chris Putnam, The Final Roman Emperor, the Islamic Antichrist, and the Vatican's Last Crusade, you'll receive the largest giveaway of 2016, an unprecedented value of over $200 in free books, DVDs, audio files, and a data DVD library with tens of thousands of pages of ancient literature no longer available, as well as movies, WikiLeaks files the government does not want you to see, and more for your library or to give away as gifts. Included in this biggest giveaway of 2016 are Chris Putnam's full-length DVD presentation, Astrobiology and the Vatican ET Connection, the new 5-part Skywatch TV special investigative report on the book, The Final Roman Emperor, plus 2 mystery books with a $40 value, and a data DVD library with thousands of pages of ancient literature, movies, and audio series for your library or to give away as gifts. And for the first several thousand customers while supplies last, you'll also receive Satan's Dirty Little Secret, the 2 demon spirits that all demons get their strength from. Satan, You Can't Have My Promises, the spiritual warfare guide to reclaim what's yours. What Happens When I Die, true stories of the afterlife and what they tell us about eternity. Becoming a Prayer Warrior, a guide to effective and powerful prayer. An unprecedented value of over $200 in never-before-offered free products. And the biggest giveaway of 2016, yours absolutely free when you purchase The Final Roman Emperor from skywatchtv.com for only $19.95 plus shipping, beginning May 31st. But be advised, this astonishing promotion is limited to first come, first serve while supplies last. So it's urgent, beginning May 31st, 2016. You place your order for the final book and biggest prediction yet in this 4-year investigation by internationally acclaimed best-selling authors Tom Horn and Chris Putnam. The Final Roman Emperor, the Islamic Antichrist, and the Vatican's Last Crusade for only $19.95 plus shipping. This offer is on a limited time basis and will end without notification. So be sure to visit skywatchtv.com to follow the updates in the countdown to the biggest giveaway of 2016. Order the new book by Tom Horn and Chris Putnam on May 31st to receive the unprecedented value of over $200 while supplies last. Free products limited to quantity on hand and may be replaced by products of equal value.